Let's start as usual with a quick recap on last weekend. Hawick beat Melrose by a point at Mansfield Park. Gala won at Edinburgh Accies, both in the Premiership, which means Gala are top of the table on points difference, with Heriots and Ayr also on 24 points. Melrose have 17 in fourth and Hawick move up to seventh. In the National League, Selkirk remain unbeaten after a 17-16 win at Stewmel, but they didn't get a bonus point. That means GHA, also unbeaten, are the new leaders. They also won by a point against Mar, 35-34. Peebles won at home to Hillhead Jordan Hill, but Kelso and Jed Forest suffered defeats on the road. We'll look at tomorrow's fixtures later in the programme, but first a chat with Richie Gray, who last Saturday became the first borderer to find out what it feels like to beat the All Blacks. He did it as Springboks skills coach, and when he returned to Galashiels on Tuesday, there was only one question to ask.
No, listen, it's a fantastic little bit of history, I suppose, but at the end of the day, in the grand scheme of things, I'm just thinking about Ireland now in about 5 weeks' time, and then England, and then Italy, then Wales, and then we've got a World Cup next year, so, nice little thing to put in the top drawer, but really you got to keep on winning.
Tell me about the intensity of that build-up for that game.
It was big. I think, I've been involved in a lot of rivalry games in my life, I'm thinking I'm sitting down here at Netherdale, and even town rivalries, the games used to be huge. I think you could just about times that by about 4 or 5 million, and pretty much you would have what happened last week. Ellis Park, first of all, is like the world of hurt, really, and it's always been a place where teams have not liked to come, and the South African mentality is that Ellis Park's a real fortress. So I think last year, looking back on the game, which was an absolute epic as well, it just got away from us. To win it this year was fantastic. Huge pressure all week and massive rivalry between two of at the moment, number 1 and 2, the biggest nations in the world playing the sport. So just a fantastic, just a great sort of cauldron to be involved in, and there's some world-class players on show, both teams, and it was a fantastic game of rugby.
And building nicely for the World Cup, isn't it?
Yeah, great advert for the game. No, it is. It's building nicely for the World Cup, but I think every team's the same. Stuart, this World Cup next year, and I've said this before, is going to be the closest fought World Cup there's been, and even the you can't even say smaller countries anymore. I think of teams like Georgia. I was involved with them 4 years ago when Richie Dixon had them and we went down for a weekend. They've got incredible talent. Samoa, America, you name it, they're all coming through now. The strength conditioning programmes, the coaching, the technical skills, the analysis is all there. So it's going to be a phenomenal World Cup next year in England.
Now, it's a fantastic achievement that you've done, obviously being involved with the Springboks. But of course, when you come back into the borders again, it's very understated in comparison, isn't it?
Well, you know what? It's great. It's actually great to come back, and I'm away about 26 weeks a year, working away from home. My home at the moment still here. It's great to come back. It's quite relaxed actually. I think I just can walk down the Galashiels High Street, and I think most people are talking about how Gala are going to go this Saturday against against one of the club teams in the Premiership. So it kind of takes the focus away, which is great, and you can just get back to normality again.
Now, of course, the All Blacks will be coming to Scotland very, very soon now. Any tips for the Scottish management? How do you beat the All Blacks? It's never been done.
No, it's never been done. I can remember, but being at the last game, the draw, with my father, and I can remember also that that game wasn't televised. There was a strike, I think, that day, so it was never televised. Remember, I think Jim Pollock scored in the corner. I think it was result 25-all. I think, and the South had played them here the Wednesday before. So no, I can remember all of these things. How are you going to beat them? Well, you got to keep the ball off them for a start. That's the number one thing, because they've got some world-class players across the field. Sevilla, even at the weekend, a real class act, and they still just seem to be producing more and more good players. So, no, first and foremost is don't give them the ball.
Can they do it?
Any team can do it. Any team can beat another side, especially top 10 teams in the world. I've always said this, that there's very little difference between the top 10, and I think it's on the day, but the problem is if you don't get it right on the day, then it can be a very difficult 80 minutes, and that means that every single player has got to come there with their 100%, whatever that looks like. They've got to give that and make sure sometimes a little bit of luck goes for you as well, but every team's beatable.
Scotland's Sevens squad will take to the field in the wee small hours in the IRB World Sevens Series on the Gold Coast in Australia, with 7 of them with Borders connections among the 12 players. We heard, of course, from Scott White and Lee Jones last week, and this week Daily Record rugby presenter David Ferguson had a chat with me about Sevens in general.
I would like to see Sevens played across the country. I think that's the key. It's not so much the national level. The key for me is the grassroots level. If we could see Sevens played in every district, I would like to see the 15-a-side season stopped at the end of March. It's too long for players at the moment. Play it from September through to March. Maybe even stop it earlier, and then go into Sevens and allow a lot of the big forwards who put an awful lot of effort in to have a break, a lot of the older guys to have a break from the game and spend more time with their families. I think we'd find more experienced older guys coming back into our club game if that was the case, and allow the sprightly youngsters and the wingers and all the rest who don't get space normally to really go out and relish the 7-a-side game, through April, May, June. Across the country, not just in the Borders. If we had that across the country and it was replicated at youth level and schools level, and that became 7 season, March, April, May, June, whatever, maybe even further into the summer, then I think that's where we would get a real development of Sevens rugby. And we need that because we're going to play in the Olympics. I think with the Olympics, that's when we'll see Sevens start to become a bigger game across the world, because we'll start to see America, China, Japan, Russia starting to take rugby seriously, and then we'll start to develop. And if we're not at the table, then we'll fall right back, despite the fact it's a birthplace. Melrose invented it. We owe a lot to Ned Haig. Sevens will start to drift in Scotland if we don't have ourselves set up. And when I say that, it's not about the national side and what's happening at Murrayfield. It's across the country. We need to have support for it, and we need to have players across the country coming through in Sevens.
But Sevens is growing all the time on a world stage. There's no doubt about that. Could you actually see it almost in the future, 10 years down the line, for instance, with the fact that it's in the Commonwealth Games, it's in the Olympics as well? Could we actually see the Sevens game, etc., being played exclusively by Sevens players?
Yeah, probably. I can see that, because it is a different game, and the more we see it develop, the more different it is. In saying that, I think there are plenty of players that play 15s who can adapt. But it's asking a lot of them to adapt, as we saw in the Commonwealth Games, for 1 or 2 tournaments. I questioned some of the selections that were made in the Scotland team for the Commonwealth Games. Lee Jones, fantastic. We knew he could play Sevens. We know he could play Sevens. Stuart Hogg had a bit of that about him. Sean Lamont, I don't know what he brought to the Scotland squad. I don't know why he was there, to be honest. There are better Sevens players that could have been brought into that team, and I think that's something we still have to get our head around nationally in Scotland. That there is a type of player who revels in Sevens. And I'm not just saying it's a winger. We remember the big forwards of the past, the magnificent 7 that Gala had with Peter Brown, Ken Oliver and Eric Paxton at Kelso and Gary Callender. These types, there were some great players. They were great Sevens players as well as 15s. So it's different types of player. You need a big, hard, solid forward who can win ball, who can beat men, who can knock men all over in the Sevens game at the moment as well. But there's a difference there between a 7s and a 15s player, and we need to cultivate that. So, yeah, I could see us moving towards that. In Scotland, again, it goes back to what I've said. We need more players. If we don't have more players playing, we'll continue to be pulling boys from the same teams into teams, and it won't work. We need more players and a bigger mass of players, 7s and 15s.
David Ferguson. Well, let's turn to tomorrow and look at the local fixtures. In the Premiership, all our teams are at home. Top of the table, Gala will be looking to keep the pressure on everyone with a win against Boroughmuir at Netherdale. Gala utility back Graham Speirs has been pleased at the way their backs and forwards have been mixing it up this season.
Pride ourselves on having a bit of a strong base up front, and the forwards have, I think it's fair to say, they've won us plenty of games in the past. Chris coming in as a new backs coach as well, he's wanting to sort of us to step up and sort of match what the forwards have been doing all last year, and it's pretty pleasing to see that we are actually chucking the ball about a bit and getting a bit of success that way as well.
Hoyk's win at home to Melrose last week won't mean a thing if they can't back it up with another win at Mansfield Park tomorrow against Stirling County. Captain Rory Hutton agrees.
That's vital points, and it was the first time we've won at home, so we need to be consistent in making Mansfield Park somewhere that it's hard to get a victory against us. So I think we just need to build on this now, and that'll see us in a decent position at the end of the season.
Melrose have had a couple of hard training sessions this week to put the wrongs from last week right. They take on Heriots for the second time this season, and Richard Mill and his teammates will be hoping for a return to form and exact revenge against the City side who beat them in the Charity Shield back in August.
They're a great side this season and they're playing very well. They're very good rugby, so we just have to up our game everywhere in the field, and we have to connect between backs and forwards a lot better as well. We're still off the money massively.
The featured game on Radio Borders tomorrow with Bruce Miller and Dale Clancy, your commentary team, is down at Riverside Park. Jed Forrest and league leaders GHA in National League 1. Kelso are at home to Stew Mel, Selkirk host Aberdeen, and Peebles are away at Mar. Hoyt YM will be looking to turn their fortunes round at Mansfield Hawk as they take on West of Scotland. That's in National League 3. In East League 1, a derby at Scremiston between Berwick and Hoyt Lindeen, and another at Milntown with Langham and Hoyt Quinns going head-to-head, while Duns are at home to Dunbar. Big game in East League 2 between St Boswells, who are unbeaten in 27 matches, and Forrester, who are unbeaten this season. The game's at Forrester, and this will be Bossie's biggest test for a long time. Also in that division, Earlston have a home game against Inverleith. Finally, East League 3 sees Gala YM at home to Bowness. Super Scoreboard Live is on air from 2 o'clock tomorrow with Keith Clarkson in the chair. The roundup will be at 5:45. I'll be looking after that. And the Rugby Roundup on Sunday is now at a new time, 8:25. So set your alarms for that. But that's your rugby for tonight.